As a Roman soldier, just where you stood in these three lines was based on your age and your experience. If you were around 17 to 25, you would take up position right here in the front rank. Here you would be in the thick of the action. As a raw recruit, you would become battle-hardened or die. If you survived to your mid-20s, then you would graduate to the second rank of experienced men at the peak of fighting fitness. And if you lived to be a grizzly old veteran, you would find a home here in the third rank. Maybe it wouldn't be so quick anymore, but all that knowledge and experience would help get the army out of a tight spot. Let's take a look at what Hannibal and his army would have seen. The skirmishers out in front act like a kind of curtain, making it difficult to work out just how the Roman troops are organized, how many there are. And we can see that Hannibal's army is nothing like the Roman military machine on the other side of the battlefield. This is an army drawn from many countries. From Africa come the Libyan spearmen and Numidian cavalry on small, swift horses. There are Gauls from France and Spaniards fighting both on foot and on horseback. Here, Hannibal has the advantage of 10,000 horsemen against the Roman 6,000. And the flat plain of Cannae is perfect for cavalry warfare. But he has only 40,000 infantry against Rome's force of 70,000. The Roman army was so vast it had two commanders, Paulus and Varro. They took turns leading the army on alternate days. Now this is tricky enough if both commanders have the same strategy, but they didn't. They had competing strategies. Paulus favored a cautious approach and did not want to rush into battle. Varro was spoiling for a fight and wanted to force the battle onto the open plain where the huge Roman army had room to maneuver. On August 2nd, 216 BC, it was Varro's turn to command, and so the Roman army began to form ranks for battle. As usual, the infantry occupied the center, with the cavalry detachments on either wing to guard the flanks. We can never know exactly what was going through Varro's mind, but he decided to change the normal battle order. He ordered the Roman ranks to be made much deeper. There were fewer gaps and hardly any option to change formation.
Either through great wisdom or utter folly, the consuls had agreed to stack the legions to create depth and shock with the idea they could just burst through the Carthaginian army. They'd given up flexibility in exchange for power.
And so Hannibal devised a trap. He massed his Gauls and Spanish troops in a crescent formation that curved outward towards the Roman lines. He seemed to be inviting an all-out attack on his outnumbered force. Even his own soldiers must have wondered what he was up to. He had placed himself at the most vulnerable part of the line, at the center, where the fighting would be fiercest.
They had to hold the advance of this huge Roman steamroller. He was there to encourage what he knew to be the weakest part of his line.
To some extent, he may have been appealing to the sort of emotional, the warrior culture of the Gauls in particular, who made up a lot of these units. This was a culture in which you were supposed to excel, do the spectacular, to stand out in front.
Strangely, Hannibal had left his best troops, the Libyan spearmen from North Africa, in reserve on the flanks of his army. But Hannibal knew exactly what he was doing. He had a plan. Almost 130,000 men and 16,000 horses were squeezed into this battlefield just over 2 miles square, beginning where the tree line marks the river, and ending here at the hill of Cannae. Suddenly there was a frenzy of movement. The skirmishers ran forward. Legions advanced in step. The men of Carthage, outnumbered 2 to 1, braced for impact. The Battle of Cannae had begun. Hannibal sent his heavy cavalry straight for the Roman horsemen under Paulus. fighting was fierce and brutal. Meanwhile, Hannibal's Numidian cavalry charged the Roman left wing under Varro. While the cavalry battled, the 8 legions of Roman infantry rolled forward towards Hannibal's position. When they got to within 15 yards, each legionary threw his spear, the pilo. Then they drew the gladius, a short stabbing sword of hardened Spanish steel, and collided with the Carthaginian crescent. This is a replica gladius and shield. The shield was used for battering an opponent, quickly followed by a thrust. The shield alone weighs 22 pounds. So, in this heat with that sun and a full suit of armor, it's hard to imagine fighting for 4 minutes, let alone 4 hours.
Modern reconstruction of weapon efficacy tell us that a muscular man with a gladius can wield more thrusting power, more killing potential than a spear or an arrow or any other ancient handheld weapon or missile.
The sheer weight of Roman numbers was irresistible. Hannibal suffered dreadful losses as the legions hacked their way deeper into the center. The Roman juggernaut seemed unstoppable. Hannibal and his men were hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Defeat seemed inevitable, but Hannibal was about to